Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Image & Wire Show. My name is Jake Fishman. I'm the host of the show and the editor of the Image & Wire, and I'm super happy to have Rishi Nayyar, the CEO and co-founder of PocketHealth, joining us. PocketHealth's been doing some amazing things in the image sharing space, which is really important if you consider how much of a problem image sharing remains within radiology and for radiology patients. And that makes me really happy to have him on and really happy to share what he has to say with you. Rishi, welcome to the show.
Hey, Jake. Thanks for having me.
It's really good to have you on. To get us started, I'd love just to hear a little bit more about you and your background and what you're doing at PocketHealth.
Yeah. So Jake, as you mentioned, I'm the co-founder and CEO of PocketHealth. We're I would say, it feels like we're a mature company now, but we're 6 years old, been growing extremely quickly. And our focus is just on helping patients access their imaging records and helping large healthcare systems and more mid-sized hospitals and imaging centers help their imaging move more seamlessly through the ecosystem. We started off on a lens that patient access was not only the right way to move it, but also just the architecturally correct way to solve that problem. I'm sure we'll get into that, but that's a thesis that we started with that's been proved out now a lot. And really excited to dig into, the problem we're attacking and how we're doing.
Right. Let's dig into it. And I guess the physical manifestation of that problem is CDs, right?
Yeah.
So how do those CDs impact providers?
Yeah, I mean, I read Imaging Wire every day. Your listeners definitely feel this pain. They're obviously resource intensive. They're difficult for patients to use themselves. I don't know anyone who has a CD drive. I definitely haven't had one in probably 10 years. And that's on the patient side. On the referring physician side, very few are maintaining CD drives anymore. And then for the hospitals, they're maintaining entire resource centers. So staff, burners, et cetera. If you go to RSNA, they're still being sold and people are still buying them because it's an entire a setup that they have to get these CDs burned. They're obviously lost, forgotten, damaged all the time. But they're a real issue, and they've been hard to move away from, unusually.
Why have they been so hard to move away from?
Because they're not that bad, to be honest. When you think about the other alternatives, portals, traditional image exchanges, things like that, a CD, if we just sort of back up, it's ultimately flexible. You can hand it to a patient who doesn't need to be tech savvy, doesn't need to know how to use the CD, doesn't care what brand the CD is on, and they can deliver it to a referring physician, a research company, a very large academic hospital, a tiny community hospital without even IT support, and it'll just work. And then the referring physician doesn't worry, oh, is this a ScanDisk CD? Oh no, it's a Western Digital CD. I'm not signed up for Western Digital. So you can kind of see the analogy I'm starting to build, which is okay, we replaced this annoying but super flexible image exchange medium CDs with, you could say, portals or image exchanges that I would classify personally as a bit like blunt force instruments. I see CDs as being able to slide into every crevice of the healthcare system, from the top end of the market all the way down to your little community doctor without even internet. Whereas portals are just this hey, use it. And if you're on the system, it'll work. If you've been trained on it and you're signed up and you got the thin client and everything. And if not, then tough luck, it's not going to work. So when you kind of present it like that, you can kind of imagine why providers really haven't been able to move away from CDs, at least wholesomely.
So why is PocketHealth different?
Yeah, I think it's always many things, but it's really around the fact that, one, we're patient centric, two, we're no network. We also believe that we have a lot of advantages on the flexibility and the change management side of things. So if we kind of just go in order, one, we're patient centric, uniquely, and we're a platform that's at, let's say, very large scale. We have over 800,000 patients on the platform. We're a team of 90. We're in over 600 hospitals and imaging centers across North America. So this is not like a small sample size, including several of the top 10 ranked hospitals in North America. So we're the only system where the vast majority of our images that a referring physician or another site is seeing was sent to them through the patient, not hospital to hospital. That's not because we don't have that hospital to hospital flow, but it's because we built out this really robust patient experience, meaning it's actually easy for patients to sign up. It's been communicated to them properly. We literally make the posters that the hospitals put on the wall, give them the call scripts, come in person, train the patients as well. So, and then make the sharing tools that patients can actually share with physicians. So we're a patient-driven platform. We find that that's actually the most efficient way for the images to get to where they need to go. We didn't create that concept. That's literally how CDs work now. So that seemed like the obvious way to go about it, as opposed to, I mean, there's obviously a lot of consolidation going on in the industry of like networks, and then, hey, my network's not working, I'll add another network. That'll solve the problem. And then it becomes this intractable issue where, hey, if I just get every node on it, then it'll work, which obviously is an end state that we will never get to. You're never going to have every patient on a single system. That's not how file sharing works anywhere else, which is a nice segue to like the other really core pillar to how we think about product architecture, which is it's no network, meaning the patient can then share with anyone, and they don't have to be on the system. They don't have to sign up for the system in any way. They don't have to have any hardware or software dependencies on their end. And most importantly, they don't have to change anything. So you can think about like a physician who's used to receiving information by fax. Through PocketHealth, they can actually get imaging access through fax and access it in the same way without ever signing up for anything. So like that idea of like no network sharing, a lot of image exchanges will say, hey, yeah, we have this concept of like nodes. So you don't have to be a hub, you can be a spoke. But the spokes still have to sign up, often install something. Then this is an entire change management piece. And how do you convince a referring physician who's used to CD-ROMs or like pieces of paper to do that change management lift when they're understaffed and so busy every day? So these two simple concepts, let's drive most of the imaging flow through the patient who wants to do that information flow anyways, and make it so that it's truly no network, not just no network on paper. Instead of doubling down the network concept. That's really helped us move providers to zero CD, which no one else has been able to do before.
I guess it's cool to take the thing that, like you said, is working, or at least like makes operational sense, and kind of bring it into the current millennium. When you're talking to a provider or imaging center, imaging group, what are the types of things they ask when you kind of have this conversation with them?
Yeah, I mean, first, it's a lot of basics. Like, how does PocketHealth work? We're a cloud-based image sharing platform. We implement, patients request their scans, and then they can actually access it immediately from their account, but through a true legal record release, not a portal access. The patients own the images. They've signed that consent. It's like handing them a CD. And so the follow-on question is like, okay, how do you get the access? Well, we have like a thin edge device we call the PocketHealth Gateway, and implement directly with the PACS, as well as in all the other systems in the hospital, like the EMR, the RIS, transcription, wherever else we need to be to build that full custom workflow for the providers. And then, really, it's how much does it cost? We have a pretty, it's always right in the first call. Okay, what's this going to cost me? We have a pretty unique system where we're able to charge hospitals directly, and often do. But we actually also have a model where we're able to essentially have a copay model where the patients are partially funding it as well. It's still cheaper than I'm getting the CD, paying for parking, driving in. We're talking about very low cost, like $5 for permanent access for the patient. But that actually does help a lot of hospitals, especially as we're going into, I would say, some belt tightening across the healthcare industry. And we actually have the majority of our providers in that copay model, which is very unique. And I think as we're going to see it as a real advantage for hospitals to be able to continue saving money while giving their patients a really amazing experience.
At least in the US, we're very used to copays, so that's not going to raise any red flags over here. So you said that the majority of your clients are are using that copay model. What are the other things that, the Pocket Health user organizations have in common?
You know, what they really have in common is that they're all burning CDs. They may have adopted an image exchange at some point in the past. In fact, they typically have adopted an image exchange at some point in the past. So the meeting Pocket Health is not like their first crack at this problem. And they're like, wow, we didn't even know this was a problem. They know it's a problem. They've been able to get some CD reduction by like convincing their like most nearby sister sites and their highest referring physicians to like, please go on to this image exchange. And then they sign them up and they maintain it and they train them on it and everything. And by they, I mean the hospital, not the vendor that they're using. But you're still left with this, if you think of it as like a graph of like where the CDs are going, you're left with this long tail of like all their other I guess requesters of imaging between patients, between referring physicians that aren't at those close sister sites, and they're burning CDs for that. That's like the number one, I would say, commonality amongst all of our clients and the clients we're talking to that aren't quite customers yet, but are in the progress of being, is that they have a significant portion of CD burning still that hasn't been solved by what I would say is like the legacy image exchange providers that have been around for the last 10 or 20 years.
For these folks who've already moved to Pocket Health, or the ones you're talking to now, who you mentioned who, they will be soon, what's the implementation process look like?
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. On the tech side, it's extremely light, which is great. We're just talking to the PACS. We can talk to the EMR if we need to get reports from there, if we want to launch any custom workflows. We have an amazing MyChart integration, a Cerner patient portal integration, all scripts as well. So we can do all that, but that's really up to the site on how deep we want to go down that rabbit hole from the patient experience perspective. But a lot of our implementation is on the operational side. So we go really, really deep on the change management. I always say getting to 0 CD, which is the outcome that we get to with all of our customers, like 100% 0 CD. That requires not software, but software wrapped in change management. And the way the industry's always worked is like, we're the software vendor, like figure out the change management on your own. And meanwhile, we've seen hundreds and hundreds of implementations go to 0 CD. So we actually take a much deeper step in where we're going in, we're creating custom posters, like I mentioned, voicemails, we're going on site, we're doing lunch and learns, we're creating custom video testimonials for them to play at the bedside, convincing patients like, please don't ask us for a CD again. We're going on this new platform. CD inserts, we're integrating into the patient portal. And then we get a list of all the top referring physicians and we call them proactively. We send them fax blasts. Hey, your nearby hospital switching over. So then you can start to see why you can have a great product, but without all of those things, it doesn't matter how good the product is. Your change management in healthcare is so hard. You need to have your vendor supporting you on that, because you can't, this is your first time doing an implementation like this. The vendor, this is their hopefully at least 100th, maybe 1,000th. They have the experience to lead that change management process, especially in a time when we see our clients, they don't have time to technically deploy something and then also deal with staff training and begging their referring physicians to get onto a new system.
After this change management process and after the implementation, and they've fully adopted their mature user, what does that look like?
Yeah, typically it's we're seeing a lot higher patient satisfaction. That does show up in things like HCAHPS scores, but also you know a lot of imaging departments have their own patient satisfaction metrics that they track. We always see that going up. We see calls into both referring physicians and the diagnostic imaging departments go down significantly because patients actually have the access. They're actually able to get the reports. We have things like Report Reader, which actually translate the reports into patient-friendly language. So they're actually becoming educated about it and calling the referring physician in a panic at a much, much lower frequency than they normally would. So, and that's an important piece, not just report access, here's your reports. We're actually telling them what it means in patient-friendly language as built by our medical panel. And then obviously on the operational side, it's 0 CD. So not like, hey, before PocketHealth, we were burning about 50% of CDs, and now we're down to like 10%. It's zero, meaning they're able to shut down the CD burner. And that's when you can like unlock those FTEs and get that ROI. No matter how much our customers love their patients, want to deliver a great patient experience, the reason that we get implemented is because we're able to demonstrate really significant ROI, that this is going to cover their costs, and then also more than that within the first year. And that business case just has to be there in every single deployment.
Those CD burning vendors at RSNA are going to start having like aftermarket products in the booth.
Yeah, they'll I'm sure they'll have some other idea and work on something, and maybe Blu-rays next.
So rewinding a little bit, for the, I guess, those folks that we talked about who made the move, where were they when they finally decided that they had enough, that they were ready to start working their way towards zero CD?
Yeah, I think that they had used some sort of legacy imaging provider, and they had been stuck, but they hadn't given up hope. And I genuinely mean that there's a lot of providers that do feel like it's an intractable problem and have given up hope, or they're just waiting for like the biggest network to come along. And then, if I just convince these other hospitals around me to use it, it's their fault. It won't work. So there is that category. We're working on, spreading the good word and encouraging them to look like this. You don't have to wait till like 2026 or longer. This is a problem that can be solved now. But the ones that, we see moving faster onto PocketHealth are the ones that like never gave up, you could say. They led the charge for that initial image exchange. Now they're ready to like actually move on to something that is no network, that actually gives their patients access instead of just a reskinned version of a physician portal, which is very difficult for a patient to sign up for, and a true patient portal integration. They're ready for that move, and they're burning enough CDs that they can make a business case that it's worth implementing this. They're like, take the patient experience aside, forget about that. Like, we can at least break even, or we can at least get like 50% or 100% ROI just on like the FTE reallocation and the CD burning deletion and things like that.
So for those hopeful providers, the ones who haven't given up, they're still optimistic that there's light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
When they're planning their transition, what are the things that they do to plan it out and do it the right way?
Yeah, you have to stage it, and you have to really encourage your teams that there is that they are not the last line of support, their vendor is. In our situation, obviously PocketHealth is. So that's a huge thing. You can't, in this world now where you're struggling just to recruit clerical staff, PACS admins, et cetera, you can't just drop on a change management initiative, especially one that could be perceived as like theoretically optional or a nice to have. Even though it's not, it can be perceived like that from folks that are extremely overworked. And I completely understand that. So number one, on the support side, making sure that your vendor's leading the training and that their support information is available, and that patients are given that support information like off the bat. Every poster, every handout should not be like, if you can't log in, call the hospital. It should be, if you can't log in, call the vendor. And then the other piece is staging it appropriately. You don't want to go 0 to 1 or 1 to 0 if we're talking about CD burning. What you really want to do is think about the areas where it's the easiest to change, and then work your way down, but keep it at a time frame that's tight enough that this isn't a 2-year project. I'll give you like a very simple example. A common rollout process, we'll say we're going to go from CD burning to 0 CD burning in a 2-month period. You'll start off with all of our CDs that are being mailed currently, that's turned off. We no longer mail CDs, right? The next piece, let's look at where we're burning the most CDs, typically mammo, MRI, CT. Let's take each of those modalities one by one, week by week, and then turn those off. And then you have a 1-month period where only in escalated situations, let's think of very ornery, very upset referring physician who loves CDs. Only in that escalated scenarios will be burn CDs. And at the end of the 2 months, there is no escalations that are permitted and you're completely off. So like, we build these change management plans and customize them for each site. We've been through so many. And what we've seen is that in the industry that's actually extremely rare. Most of the time, it's like, here's the software, good luck, and the hospital isn't really equipped to run with that.
So, okay, we'll take this like optimist hypothetical question, or not hypothetical, but this question go a little bit further for, I guess, the overall informatics industry on the provider side and the vendor side. What's it going to take to just complete this transition overall and go zero CD, just 100%?
Very simple. Realize that patients are the common denominator to every node that needs their imaging. They're the common denominator to the place that did the imaging, and they're the common denominator to everyone that needs that imaging. Leverage that. We're now in a highly technical landscape where patients, even elderly patients, FaceTime, they know how to use systems. So leverage that and adopt a system and let your patients drive operational improvement for you. And number two, look at what every other industry does in terms of file sharing. No one uses the concept of a portal. No one uses the concept of a closed network. It's all built on open existing standards, not an open standard at some point in the future, which a lot of folks on the image exchange world are talking about. Existing standards that everyone already has, all of that already exists. These problems can be solved right now. So what it takes is just enough folks realizing that, hey, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. CDs work a certain way. Patients are the ones that drive it. They want to drive it if we make it easy enough. And then let's move it in a no network way. So I think that if we're able to adopt that, this problem can be solved in a matter of months to years, theoretically.
That'd be amazing. So we have our other digital health publication, and I would say that the number one trend in healthcare outside of radiology is patients' increased involvement in their own healthcare. I think radiology it's one area that radiology is particularly lagging behind other parts of healthcare. So it's this approach makes even more sense when you kind of go from a broader healthcare wide perspective, at least according to me.
I think what we've just spent a lot of time proving out is that it's not just that the patients want it, it's that, like, I like to put an architectural diagram up and say, like, literally this is the correct operational move. It's not something that government's forcing you into. It's not something that you're doing just so you can tell the board that you're patient centric or that you have patient engagement initiatives as part of your DI department. It's genuinely the way that you will actually get that CD burning reduction that maybe you were hoping for when you implemented, your first image exchange.
So for the folks who are watching who, just learned a lot about PocketHealth, but probably want to learn a little bit more, what can they do to learn more?
Yeah. Go to PocketHealth.com. You can email me directly if you have any questions or you vehemently disagree with something I said today. Rishi at pocket.health. Meet us at RSNA, where we'll all be there. I'll be walking around in full force, spreading the good word, and meeting with customers that we've been able to drive from burning a CD for every single image to burning none over years and years.
Rishi, this has been great. I've learned a lot, and also I'm feeling you can count me as one of those more hopeful people that we're going to work our way to zero CD. So thank you very much for coming on. To the folks who are watching, if you're in that group who are also hopeful, but also want to make your way towards zero CD, reach out to Rishi and his team. Check out PocketHealth. It seems like what they're doing, it makes a lot of sense, and also for your own teams and for your patients. So that's really cool. And thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Jake.